Do you ever wonder how some businessmen are super engaging, super eccentric, super enticing? Overall, they're just more electrifying to look at and listen to and emulate versus other businessmen. Even though they might have a lot of success, they seem like they're a little bit more in the box. They seem like when you listen to them, you just want to go to sleep. They're just a little bit more logical. They're a little bit more boring. They're a little bit more dull. They're just a little bit more sullen. This happens because we have many types of conditioning we receive. We have the conditioning of the average person who's kind of stuck in the rat race. Then when we escape the rat race, we have the conditioning of the person who has business success, but they're still in the box with that conditioning of having business success. And then after that, you have conditioning of the high performer who's able to live a more authentic life. How does this show up in different types of businessmen? The more enticing, eccentric, engaging businessmen to listen to, they're able to speak the way they want to speak. They're able to speak in a free-flowing manner and be loud and gregarious, facetious, and speak in any type of way that they want to speak. They dress the way that they want to dress. They have the lifestyle and the hobbies that are authentic to them, that they want to have, versus the more sullen, in the box, conditioned type of businessman has a lifestyle which is a little bit more on the beaten path. They may have a way of dressing, maybe they wear a suit and tie, which is a little bit more to the norm and a little bit more to the conditioning that they received. Also, on top of that, they may speak in a way which is a little bit more dry, to the point, logical, and a little bit more sullen. So you have these different types of conditioning that are happening to business people, and it kind of splits them off into two different groups. So in this video, we're going to talk about how to become the more enticing businessman, how to become that more engaging businessman, how to become that more eccentric businessman, kind of like a Richard Branson who's able to live life on his own terms. He's highly successful, but yet this guy doesn't feel the need to capitulate by wearing a suit. He doesn't feel the need to live a lifestyle that's inside the box. He's out having adventures. So in this video, we're going to talk about exactly how to escape that kind of in the box business conditioning to live a more eccentric life and to become a more eccentric businessman. Welcome to chapter 2, in which we're gonna really break down the conditioning here. We have the rat race type of conditioning. We have the conditioning that you receive when you escape the rat race and you actually get on the unbeaten path of business, which really is another form of a beaten path because it comes with its own insidious in the box conditioning. And then there's the third type of conditioning, which is when you become like the real high performer who's authentic and you break out of both of those conditioning boxes. So we start off in the rat race, then we move on to the business in the box, suit and tie, hoity-toity kind of conditioning, and then we move on to the outside the box, authentic, Richard Branson, high performer type of conditioning.
So chapter 2 is all about doing an audit on yourself. As I said in the introduction and chapter 1, there is a ton of insidious conditioning, especially with the rat race mentality and the traditional business kind of mentality. There's downsides to both of that. And if we're trying to get into the eccentric kind of mentality, then we're going to start with this audit and kind of lay the brick down with this audit right here. And the first thing I'll tell you is this. There's going to be, I'll put a diagram in this video, but we have the extreme traditionalists on one side of the continuum, and then all the way on the other side of the continuum, we have the more extreme eccentric person. So what I want you to do, take some time where you can just spend time 100% alone, and you're not susceptible to the conditioning. This is where you want to do this because you don't want to be susceptible to the conditioning. You don't want to have the input of other people's minds going into your mind. And if you can spend your time 100% alone, then you can begin to audit where you stand on that hyper-traditionalist end of the continuum to the hyper-eccentric end of the continuum. And most people are not at the extreme ends of the continuum. Most people are going to fall somewhere in between.
Celebration in the now. They are celebrating the now, and what's funny is they never waited. We wait. We get tense, and not only do we get tense in our musculature. Like you talked about hustling for years. You get tense in your back.
Yeah.
He's like the massage therapist is mad at him because his neck is so tense, his back is so tense. So it's even if you're not now. To be fair, we don't know how many drugs Ray Shermer did and Travis Scott are on.
Actually, my ex used to hang out with them.
Okay, so a lot of drugs. So you don't have to use a bunch of drugs to get loose. So you can take a slice.
do the things you want to, like money, muscles. You do that for yourself. It's your relationship to making money. It's your relationship to getting muscles. And you can take a slice of Ray Sherman in your life. You can take probably a pretty big slice of Ray Sherman, a huge slice of Travis Scott, a definite big slice of Elliot Holtz, because he's actually showing you the sober, bioenergetic exercises to actually become like that. Without actually taking a slice from them, you will densify. You will become like a rock. You will become stiff. Your muscles will become tight. You will become logical, and you will not be in the, what did you call it, presence now?
Not celebrating the now.
You're not going to be celebrating the now. You'll be celebrating the when. I'll be happy when. And that's a completely different paradigm.
Lower value frame.
Yeah, it's a lower value frame. And unfortunately, as you get momentum with getting densified and momentum with even just thinking about your goal. You're just driving this neural pathway deeper and deeper and deeper, thinking about your goal and not allowing yourself to slip into the now, because there's never going to come a point where you accomplish that goal 10 years in the future and all of a sudden you're in the Lambo like Ray Sherman. It doesn't happen. You don't get an American flag colored Lambo and an American flag colored bandana. I wish that was the constellation prize for 10 years of hustling, but it's not the
steel Rolex.
Yeah, exactly. You don't get any constellation prize at the end of that in terms of your flow state. That has to be trained now, and if you're not training that now, you will fall into the pattern of I'll be happy when. And unfortunately, it's not just I'll be happy when. It's not just looping on your goal. The rationalizations become more and more subtle over time. You begin to think that as you attack this path to mastery, that because your RAS is now it gets such a sunk cost bias towards that structured, densified, logical way of being, that you wind up you wind up thinking that people appreciate you for your, or dating people you're dating or you want to be dating appreciate you for your mastery. They don't understand your mastery the same way.
Not at all.
Guys on the street.
Destroyed by guys who act like that. Destroyed by that, okay? We hide what we've built when we go out, okay?
100%.
We are a million miles closer to those guys when we're out than some kind of hustle culture person.
Go qualify yourself. The worst is if you verbally qualify yourself about your path to mastery. They don't care. But even if you don't verbally qualify yourself,
energy, it's in your neurotic holding pattern.
Yes. They can feel it off of you. They can feel the tenseness. They can see the stiffness in the eyes, and not the loose, relaxed, but focus calm. They just see denseness in your eyes. They see the light has been extracted out of your eyes. And unfortunately, over time, you'll begin to rationalize as you get a sunk cost bias towards that way of living, that people will appreciate you for your mastery. They never do. The same way even other guys can't even appreciate you. Can you understand even Kobe Bryant's path to mastery? Of course not, because he worked for it and you didn't. So what makes you think the girls or the people you want to date will understand your engineering path to mastery? Hell no, they won't. They never went to engineering school, unless they did, but they probably have no perspective on that. And over time, you become more and more densified in that way of being, and people just don't even want to be around you because your vibe becomes toxic, and that can even lead to bad habits.
If you want to learn about this, it's something called the release muscle. So, the release muscle. When I'm up on stage at an event, for example, the event that I had when I created Blueprint Reloaded, that was running about a 4 to 5 day event, and they would be running about 10 hours a day. I would have to make sure that my voice wouldn't go out. And I would also have my voice projecting throughout an entire room. So people would always try to learn the technique to copy this so that my voice would be booming, or that it would cover a room, or that I could free associate, or that I could just riff and riff and riff and riff. And they want to know how to do it. It's all in the release muscle, okay? You literally just learn more from Elliot and from some hip hop artists than, about the release muscle than you could from anything from hustling or making a certain amount of cash. Now remember,
or Toastmasters, or way that they speak in TED Talks. They can tell you don't say so, don't say right, don't say but when you're loose, you'll naturally talk the correct way, and you'll naturally not run out of things to say. So it bleeds into all these different it bleeds into all these different ways of communicating. But it starts with understanding what it actually means to be mentally loose. If you've ever meditated, you understand what it means to let go of your mind and be aware of the thoughts like a cloud passing in the night. That is the same mental pocket you need to tap into when you're trying to stay loose and trying to stay in that release muscle. If you're tightening up, That's why you run out of things to say. If you're tightening up, that's why you're getting neurotic holding patterns and tightness in your muscles and so on and so forth. Your psychology affects your physiology, and your psychology affects the way that you communicate. Your psychology affects your creativity as well. One of the best ways to even catch those neurotic holding patterns, which if you view them as no different than a massage knot, that, you know, a knot that gets in your muscles that you got to get a massage therapist or a masseuse to get out by deep tissue massage. Vipassana meditation is a meditation practice where you sit in a room for 10 hours a day, or for even more than 10 hours a day. You're sitting there from 4 a.m. till 9 p.m. at night with some breaks, and you're in silence. You don't have your phone with you. You have zero stimulation, and your mind is forced into silence. And when it's in that state, it's like the demons, the addictive patterns of your brain are pulled out of you. They're pulled into your awareness, and like a cloud passing in the night, they go away. And over time, you get down to these root core patterns that you're running in your mind. A lot of those root core patterns have been developed through just things that you're constantly thinking about and tenseness that you're carrying, and that stems from the habits that you've built. And the habits that you built have been stemmed from the conditioning that you're under, whether it's hustle culture or otherwise. For me, my first Vipassana meditation retreat, I identified two main things about my mind. I've done subsequent retreats as well, but the two main things I identified were this. The first thing is that I'm constantly looping on the future. I'm trying to piece together a future reality right now, and I can never quite get it right. Obviously, you can't, because you can't carve the future out with my thought. I can't carve the future with my thoughts. The second thing is I notice my brain is looping on other people again and again and again. Conversations I'm having with my dad, little battles I'm having with my family, little battles I'm having with prior staff, and they're not even in the room. They're not here. It's from the past. So it's the classic past and the future. My version is future thinking about work and past thinking about other people.
If you are uptight, right? Like think about cultures where they really, really focus on math as an example, right? Or, becoming a doctor, right? Or like making sure that your dad is happy. And in cultures like that, those are often the people that struggle the most with attraction and social interaction, right? And you can see entire countries where that's the culture, where like there's a lot of deep, deep suffering around the topic of attraction. Then when you look at cultures that are more into dancing and being in the moment, right? The mother of my kids is from Latin America. I've been down there with her. They're doing salsa, right? And this is very, very, very attractive, where it's in the moment, it's having fun, because the law of state transference shows that when you're in a state of release, you're not thinking, and it's all about just pumping your state. That puts someone in a certain mood where they're having fun, and they're looking to get intimate, and they're looking to really connect with you deeply, emotionally, physically, spiritually, quickly, and so on and so forth. And what's happening is that you're really instigating that by having so much fun, right? And again, like my ex-girlfriend, even when I'm doing public speaking, all that I'm thinking, or all that Sid is thinking, is like it's less like controlling the room rather than trying to get it from the outside, walking around the venue. Oh, who's stimulating me? Where can I get validation? You can hypnotize yourself into negativity just to the power of your own mind, right? So if you're just looping on, this is awesome, I'm awesome, life is awesome, everything's great, woo, 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 and loosen the fuck up and release. So if I'm in front of a crowd, for example, one exercise that I'll do is I'll even just put my hand like that, and I'll see if you can use vocal projection, but without having your hand go, ugh, like that, right? Like if you're going, and so on and so forth, you're tensing up. But if you can just go, but actually just have your hand be, even I'm a little slightly tense there, but that looseness is what gets people, what could be into a buying state, could be into an intimacy state, could be into a transactional state. Yeah, receptive state. It's taking things that would be very serious. It's like, well, this is like an investment, and I don't know if I can do it, and I don't know what it says about me to do this, as opposed to just the feeling of having fun. Want the experience now. Yeah, want the experience. So realize that when you're a little bit crazy, they think you're nuts. When you're batshit crazy, they make you their leader.
Yeah, and it's not. Batshit crazy is definitely one thing, but it's also another. We could also take
Sway Lee or Travis Scott are batshit crazy.
Yeah, they're batshit crazy, but to even extrapolate that further, they're doing something that is primitive. It's preverbal. It comes before words. How would a caveman tribe have interacted with each other? It would have been through sounds, grunts, clicks, movement, subtleties in the eye contact, things like that. Things that the self was always shining through. The vibe expressed more and communicated more about that individual in their state than their words ever could. So what Travis Scott or Sway Lee is doing is they're almost in a primitive state. And this puts other people in a primitive state that they want to let go in.
Primitive state in which they want to let go, aka the best state possible. So I guess what we're trying to get at you here is that, and I've shown this to friends of mine, I've done social interaction where I just made sounds, or I just use eye contact, or just using dancing or things like that, but make an effort to get more and more and more loose. And so what I'm trying to show you over the years is that you should absolutely go make as much money as you can, because there's things more important than social results. I think learning marketing top to bottom is one of the most important things that you could ever do. I also think that you should learn all about your own fitness and your body, because you want to be mobile, maybe have low blood pressure, or to be healthy, or to have certain physical goals. I'm about to go skiing. Maybe you want to go skiing, whatever the case, right? But do that for you. What I have found is often the most attractive bodies is not the guy who's jacked on steroids and who's trying to be all so perfect. Often the most attractive body is like the kind of dude who maybe does swimming and some hiking and some weights, and he genuinely loves it. Or the kind of guy that has a business that's very attractive is the guy who genuinely loves what it is that he does, but he's doing it truly for passion. But the problem is, how much of your life are you doing as these little small self-compensations and not realizing how much of your fucking life is just you subtly compensating, and you subtly self-qualifying, and you subtly having lower value, just reinforcing that frame, and then thinking that when you go out, you'll just be like kind of uptight and in your control muscle, and then somehow you'll control all of it. But someone who's in control, he's got to control even his environment, and he can only go and meet people inside of a container event and like a party that he's running, which we do them here all the time. We do parties. We love that. It's amazing. Love it, love it, love it. But they can only do it there. They can't go to a place where they don't know anyone and just meet new people, because they've got to control everything because they're not loose. And they're thinking that when they make a certain amount of money, people are going to like them. Control, which ironically is pedestalizing social results. And so you're actually getting further from them, versus when people are loose and having fun, they are connected to their environment.
Yeah,
and
that tenseness that you carry makes people want to run away from you. So it's like you can control the environment all you want, but or you could try to you be jealous and control the environment to make sure your spouse or whatever doesn't step outside of that, but you're ironically making it worse for yourself.
Yeah, any other, I feel like we've covered this pretty well. And we could go so much deeper about, the clarity in the eyes that my 5-year-old Tristan has, and the fun that he has, and the self-state pumping. There's so much deeper that we could go on this. But I'd like to keep this a tight one. If there's anything more that you want to add, I say add it. And then we'll give a couple key concepts, and then we'll bang it and just leave it right there, because I feel like people get it.
Yeah, so I mean, the process of release, there's levels to release, right? So over time, you're going to find that you have to find a flow state activity, aka a vehicle where you can put some social pressure on yourself, and that allows yourself to get into flow. You allow some kind of practice that you can have, an active meditative practice to continually deepen your level of flow and deepen that release muscle and not that control muscle. And over time, you'll begin to unwire some of those holding patterns that you have. But it's always, as the years go on, you probably find within yourself that it's like there's levels to how much you can release. Like in the beginning, when you're public speaking or doing whatever activity or dance or public speaking, whatever, you go on stage and you're trying to kind of find those little buttons to push to relax your mind.
You've escaped the rat race, escaped the job kind of wage slave mentality and the rut of that and the beaten path of that. But what you may realize is that you've gotten onto another beaten path in life. So you've just jumped into another box, and this other box may even be more tight than the first box. And what I mean by that is this. So you escaped the rat race, but now you're in the traditional business kind of box, where now you're kind of forced to be a little bit more tight, a little bit more angular, a little bit more logical, a little bit more precise, and you can't be as eccentric and authentic as you want to be as a businessman. And you may even feel envy because you see other businessmen that are speaking their mind freely, being wild and free, very free-flowing and loose, and they're not as tight as you. They're not as forced to capitulate to the system as you are, and you might even get jealous of this. So what I'll tell you is this: it shows up in a few different forms. One of the forms is this. One of the forms is the fact that you're kind of conditioned in your communications. You might look at the traditional businessman versus the eccentric businessman, and what you're going to notice is one has communication in which he or she is free flowing. They're loud. They can say whatever they want. They can curse. There's no big brother watching them to make sure that they don't speak in a certain way. There is, to a certain degree, via the social media platforms that are out today, there's always a big brother watching you. But what I mean is that they're less likely to capitulate to that, and they're more free. That's the big key. Is they're more free to do what they want and express themselves the way that they authentically want to. Versus you have a lot of times, a lot of traditional businessmen, yeah, they escape the job, but now they're capitulating to either shareholders, their investors, their customers, but most of all, they're capitulating to just people that are stuck inside their head, the people that have conditioned them from the start, parents, society, their peers, whoever else. So they've been conditioned to speak a little bit more quietly, a little bit more logically and precisely, and a little bit more just in the box, as I said before, a little bit less free and a little bit more rigid. And this will come at a certain consequence, because this type of communication is really a reflection of your state of mind. It means that you're not being as authentic as you could be. You're more or less just kind of capitulating to the conditioning that you received, as I said before. So now there's other ways in which this shows up as well. It's not just in the way that you speak. It's also in the way that you look and present yourself to the world. So the traditional businessman might wear a suit and tie. They might have precise, trimmed kind of haircut. It's not anything too eccentric. It's not long hair. They're not going to wear earrings or have an eyebrow ring or have a full sleeve of tattoos or anything like that. But the non-traditionalist, the more eccentric businessman who cares less, is less inclined to be in the box with the way that they look. Look at Richard Branson, he has long hair. You look at some other entrepreneurs, they'll dress in outlandish, almost like peacocking style clothing, bright clothing, things like this, a diamond chain, whatever they want, whatever their personal style is, they'll dress in that kind of a way because it's the way that they want to dress. You know, I personally know a businessman who makes $55 million a year. He has full sleeves of tattoos. By all accounts, that doesn't look traditional. There's many businessmen I also know who wear the full suit and tie who don't make nearly as much money as the guy with the full sleeve tattoos. The guy with the full sleeve tattoos now looks awesome because he's the guy that made it and is dressed outside the box. He's dressed, or he has a style that's more eccentric. The guy who is more in the box, he's not going to be known. So like the guy with the tattoos, it's like it adds to his persona, it adds to his brand, it adds to his flair, it adds to his eccentricity because he has results and he's a little bit more outside the box because he has those tattoos, as I said. You also might see a guy like, for example, you have people who are at a low level who dress up more casually, let's say, and then you have people that are kind of in that mid-level, the traditional business conditioning, that wear that hoity-toity kind of suit and tie, and they dress up in a certain way, so that's kind of like the mid-level. But then at an even higher level, you have the most high-status people, or the people that are super successful to the point where they don't feel the need to capitulate to either of those boxes. They simply don't care. You know, if you look at Leonardo DiCaprio, I have a friend here who knows Leonardo DiCaprio, and she's seen him out at clubs. Apparently, he just wears like a hoodie, and he wears a little baseball cap, and he wears like track pants to the club. Now, what the converse side is that because he's in a high status environment, like a high status club in Los Angeles, and he's dressed that way, he's obviously not a businessman, so this is a little bit different of an example, but because he's dressed in a casual way and he's at a high status club in Los Angeles, it conversely looks even more high status than some guy who's trying to wear a suit and tie. At the higher levels, it matters less. Now obviously that's a little bit of a eccentric example because he's Leonardo DiCaprio, but you get the gist of what I'm saying here. So the conditioning of the traditional businessman versus the eccentric businessman also affects the lifestyle that they have. The traditional businessmen, if you look in, like I've been around very, very traditional businessmen where we're at a dinner, they're wearing their little hoity-toity suit and tie, they're wearing white gloves and tails, they're like eating their food in a certain manner, they're eating like very rich, luxurious, fancy food, caviar. I really don't think caviar tastes that great, but they'll eat the caviar because they've been conditioned to. Does it actually taste better than a lot of other foods? I don't know. I don't know if a lot of those rich people, this foie gras, duck liver, actually tastes better than a lot of the foods that than a regular steak. I don't think it tastes that much better. In fact, you know it doesn't taste better, so stop lying to yourself. So another thing is, like, on top of that, you'll also see the traditional businessmen fall into the hobbies of the people that they've been conditioned by. So like, as I said before, I've been around those hoity-toity, white gloves and tails type of people, and they're like, oh, we're gonna go golfing this weekend. Oh, I'm so happy to go golfing this weekend. I'm like, okay, I don't really think golf is that much fun, but okay, cool. But they just kind of been conditioned into golf, or they're conditioned into polo, or they're conditioned into tennis. That's another rich people sport, tennis. So they're kind of, you always see them kind of stay in the box with those rich people, traditional businessmen or businesswomen type of sports or activities or hobbies, eating their caviar, drinking their fancy red wine, versus, as I said before, there's other hobbies out there. Like, have you really authentically looked at these hobbies and this lifestyle and viewed it in an authentic way as a net positive for you? You probably haven't. So if you actually look at the eccentric businessmen, you look at guys like Richard Branson, I keep bringing him up. This guy's in hot air balloons floating across the Pacific. That other guy I talked about who makes $55 million a year with the full sleeve of tattoos, this guy wingsuit base jumps. He has hobbies that are very outside the box. Why not pick a hobby that you genuinely enjoy, that genuinely spikes up your brain neurochemistry, that makes you more present? Why do you have to just pick a hobby that's like golf or tennis? Now, you can pick golf or tennis because they can be good for business, like playing golf. You can find people close business deals on the golf course. If you genuinely enjoy golf, that's awesome. But most people don't genuinely enjoy the hoity-toity traditional rich people hobbies and lifestyle. They're kind of just doing it because they're conditioned by it. They haven't actually deliberately looked at this lifestyle with their own two eyes and looked at it and audited whether they authentically resonate with it. How to become the eccentric businessman, and there's two ways that I've seen it get done. The first way is that people are just kind of starting off in that way. They're starting off eccentric, meaning that they already had a clear sense of who they are, a clear identity. I am the eccentric person. They had a clear sense of certainty and authority and authenticity that I am just this person, and they were able to own that. They had a clear sense of self. They were able to own themselves. The second way is if you've already kind of gone down the traditional path in business, you've already been susceptible to that traditional conditioning in business, then realize this. If you're gonna go down the more eccentric path and your more authentic version of eccentricity, then what you have to do is you have to 100% own that you're now going to be this eccentric person. And this can be difficult, as we said before, because you've already been conditioned down the traditional path. So now you have to 100% own that you're gonna be the eccentric person. And the problem that you'll run into if you've already kind of gone down the traditional path is you'll kind of do this weird gray zone thing of being half traditional and half eccentric. But what happens is if you're even being 95% eccentric, if 5% of you is doubting yourself and not really putting yourself on the line, showcasing your real personality in business authentically, what's gonna happen is that 5% is gonna come back to bite you in the butt. As I said before, people are pinging off of their environment. It's subconscious, it's tribal, it's in our evolutionary nature. They're pinging off of their environment and their people around them to see who's the most certain. And if you're 100% certain, like in the previous case, like that's the first type of person I talked about, you're 100% certain, people are less likely to give you blowback. If you're 95% certain, then they're more likely to give you blowback. So let me explain this. If you're 100% certain, you're 100% like, this is me, I'm loud, I'm eccentric, this is how I dress, and this is my lifestyle, these are my hobbies, and you have a strong frame and you own it, then what's gonna happen, despite these people having previously conditioned you in a certain way, is you wind up becoming polarizing. You put your neck on the line, you put your personality on the line, and you become polarizing. So people are either gonna love it or they're gonna hate it. If you're 95% confident, you're 95% owning your eccentric nature, then almost unequivocally most people will hate it, because that 5% doubt that you have within yourself, they're gonna sense that you're doubting yourself, and when they sense that you doubt yourself even a little bit, boom, they try to put you back in the box. Boom, they try to put you back in the trash can. Boom, they try to put you back in your little basket. You have to own it 100%. Don't own it 95%. If you can't be half a gangster, you have to be 100% of a gangster. You can't have even a little bit of doubt. Now, even when you own it 100%, because these people are already, now you want to own it 100%, not even a little bit less, as I said before, but even when you own it 100%, because these people are already used to seeing you in a certain ray of light, They're already used to seeing you in the box. They're already used to seeing you as this hoity-toity guy who's a little bit quiet and is a little bit pathetic and is a little bit afraid to do hobbies that are outside the norm, afraid to take chances, afraid to drive a Mustang. You need to drive your little Toyota Prius or whatever the hell it is. You're afraid to put your real personality out there. What's gonna happen is what they're gonna do is like crabs in a bucket. They're gonna try to drag you back down into the box. Even if you're owning it 100%, they're not used to seeing you like that. They're used to seeing you in a certain way. They're not used to seeing you as someone who's outside the box, and it messes with them. It's tribal. They want to know your position in the tribe. They don't want to see you become this eccentric person. They want to see you, and they want to see you like a tight sprocket. Like, okay, he belongs in this box. He's not meant to be in this box. This is especially pertinent to law firms, accounting firms, hoity-toity kind of corporate environments. This applies to that heavily. Keep an eye out for that. Like crabs in a bucket, as I said, they'll instinctively try to drag you down. And maybe when you 100% own yourself as this eccentric person, you put your personality on the line, maybe they start saying things that rattle your confidence. But realize this, once you start getting results because you're the eccentric person, once your eccentric personality actually becomes an asset, not a liability, it actually enhances your results and doesn't take away from it. It actually enhances you. Then what's going to begin to happen is these people will come back around. They'll say, oh, you know what? I've always had your back. Or they'll go, you know what? They'll begin to look at your eccentricity as being a cool asset, your weirdness, your unique nature. They'll look at that as being cool and an asset rather than being uncool and a liability like they previously viewed you because you were stuck in the box in their eyes. The key is start getting results. But even on top of that, yeah, you own it 100%. You put your personality on the line. You're not owning it 95%. You're really becoming this eccentric person. You're owning it fully. This is me. I'm 100% certain. Then you're gonna have some people that are gonna love you. You're gonna have some people that are gonna hate you. That's inevitable. There are always gonna be people that love you and hate you when you put your real personality on the line. But when you're traditional and you're in the box and you're hoity-toity, everybody kind of just likes you. But everybody thinks you're nice, everybody likes you, but you're not really standing out. So it's better to put your real personality on the line with that eccentric nature that you have deep down within than try to capitulate to the social norm. Like Dennis Rodman, you've heard of Dennis Rodman, but you heard of Dennis Rodman because of his behavior. You've heard of Dennis Rodman because he has eyebrow rings and because he does eccentric things. That doesn't mean you have to do that. He's owning himself. Dennis Rodman is a very polarizing figure. He's not the regular NBA basketball player who dresses normal, is hoity-toity, doesn't really have an edge to their personality. He's put himself out there, which is why you know who he is. Part of eccentricity is branding. So anyway, so that we're going off on a tangent, but to get back to what we said, yeah, the first way, which is your personality, is you started off that way. You've always had a clear sense of who you were, and you didn't capitulate to other people's opinions. So there's people who are more naturally kind of geared towards that, or they just started at a young age. The second way, as we're saying here, is that you've already been down the traditional path. You've already been hit with the negative hypnosis, the trance, the conditioning, and now you're going to break free of that conditioning by 100% owning who you are. You're 100% going to change your style, change your lifestyle, change your communication, change your dress, change everything, and you're going to put yourself on the line and realize that, like crabs in a bucket, people are going to try to pull you down. Despite that, when you get results, people are less likely to try to pull you down. You can use it for branding, which makes people less likely to pull you down as well. But then at the end of the day, when you actually become that eccentric figure, people are going to view you in a polarizing way. So that's kind of like the progression there. But polarization, as I said before, is a good thing. Don't view it as a bad thing. View it as a good thing.